Look, lately I've been doing some light reading, as you do from time to time. I've been a bit of a reading slump, so I decided the only option is to read some absolute garbage. So that's what I did. I read some real good shit. On the itinerary today, I've got some great picks for you. Prison Lab, Children, and Abadana. One of these was actually better than the others, and that's Aiobahn, which I'm gonna save for last. I mean, it was alright. It was better than everything else I read, so that's a positive. I guess, maybe. Fingers crossed. Before I get into this, let me just give you a quick trigger warning, because there's gonna be some pretty heavy topics and violence in these books, which, you know, is kind of part of the course when it comes to these violent mangas. But just a warning, if you know, like self-harm, suicide, cannibalism, there's gonna be some rough stuff mentioned, I guess, yeah. They were absolutely insane. So of course, I'm gonna start with Prison Lab. Now, this manga sucks so much. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, it's really bad. I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't even finish it. That's how bad it was. I mean, I really did try to finish it, I hope you know, but I couldn't do it. I tried, I'm sorry. Look, this manga has an absolutely insane premise, and the first few chapters are just bonkers. But then it kind of really can't keep up with how bonkers the first few chapters are, and it just ends up dragging on with no clear goal or knowing what it wants to do, and it just keeps doing like plot twists one after the other, and none of them really make much sense as it goes on. It stumbles around for a bit after the first few violence that happens, and not really knowing what it wants to be at that point. But yeah, so I got real bored, and I couldn't finish it. I tried, but I will explain what I read in the best way I can, hopefully. The premise of this manga is insane, so hear me out on this. There is a guy who is getting bullied heavily from the people in his class, and at the center of it all is a childhood friend of his who is the ringleader of the bullies. Aito, the main character, then heads home after a long day of hardcore bullying and finds a letter addressed to him. This letter explains the prison game, which is just the most fucked game I've ever heard, which I'm also going to explain to you right now. The game involves heading to a secret location and picking anyone you want to be your partner. That person then gets locked up in a cell, and you can do whatever you want to them. But if you make it through a month without them uncovering your identity, then you win a shit ton of money. But if they work out your identity, then they win and they get freed, and I think they get the money as well. So hey, win-win, even though you're locked up in a prison by someone who you don't know, but they know you probably. I'm sure you've realized this almost immediately, as most people would, that this premise is just an excuse for the most fucked scenes to play out. And they get yucky with it, I promise. So of course Aito decides to put the bully in prison. So of course Aito decides to put his childhood friend, the ringleader of the bullies, in prison so that he can torture her. Because awesome. I forgot to mention, her name is Kirishima Aya. So after signing up to the game, he meets Harakawa, who will be looking after him for the month. He's kind of like, I don't know, like a observer that's only there in case Aito breaks the rules, I think. Kind of. It's weird. There ends up being a twist around him. It's kind of dumb. It's fucking stupid. I kind of hate it. Also, he looks terrible in almost every panel he's in. I don't know. The artist just cannot draw this guy consistently. So after arriving, Kirishima Aya is already locked up in the cell. It's a great little cell. It's pitch black in there with like nothing. It's really great. Aito immediately starts to belittle her and explain the game that she had no choice but to sign up for. After meeting the other players of the game, Aito then gets crazy And I mean, he gets really crazy. It kinda comes out of nowhere, and then I'm just gonna spoil it, later they explain his like crazy side as a split personality. That's how it's explained. They're not really creative with it. It's not like this slow progress into like mental illness or something. It's just he's got a split personality, but it's also not. It's just an excuse for him to be evil, I think, or crazy. I don't know. It's really dumb and I hate it. These revenge mangas usually start with the main characters being weak and timid that eventually grow jaded and cruel to commit heinous acts. But in Prison Lab, he immediately just grows heinous and commits hideous, fucking heinous acts. Whatever I said before, that's what he becomes so fast. And he gets really cruel. The other players in the game are Yoshino Misaki, who is absolutely insane, and has my favorite female character traits, crazy, in love with the main character, and heavily sexualized. You know, you can't go wrong with the big three. It is extremely clear that there is no real goal for this character other than sexy and crazy. It's kind of sad because that's what most of these female support characters in these revenge mangas end up being, just nothing more than sexualized and no character. She also has the worst fate in this book, which, going through it, all the female characters have just terrible fates. Like, it's just sad. All the male characters, they're fine. But the females, ooh, it's not great for them. Don't be a female character in Prison Lab, I guess. That's the answer to this. One of the first things we see her do is go into her prison and start pulling the teeth out of her prisoner. It's rough and extremely bloody, which, you know, great, good character introduction. The other guy is Katsumata Sachi. He has much more of a character because of course he does, whereas Misaki is just there for murder and that's it. Katsumata is there to make money, so he picks someone who would work with him to help him win. He picks the wife of his old boss. She's great. Again, another woman that has a terrible fate in this fucking book. I think it might be sexist. This book might be a little bit sexist. I'm only just realizing this now. So she has a husband, so she has a family. But then we find out that her husband cheated on her and left, taking her kid with him. So she's not real happy about that. And as it goes on, she kind of gets a little more, like, a bit unstable. But, like, she's not really unstable. He, like, promises her something, and then he backs off on his promise. And then she's like, well, that's fucked up. And then she's also in prison. So everything she, like, does is completely valid. Like, they make her out to look like a little bit crazy, but she's really not. She's going through it, honestly. But that's neither here nor there, honestly. Katsumata needs money to find the guys that assaulted his daughter and traumatized her to the point where she was left in a hospital, which is just a great story plot. That's a great plot point. It's really fucked up. You then get to see this. It's gross. It's not fun to read. So at least this gives Katsumata some character motivation, which is saying more than Yoshino Misaki. Anyway, none of this really matters, so instead let's talk about the horrific acts that Aito commits, because he's just the coolest, I guess. So he starts by taking some time, easing into it, not being too evil too quickly. I guess. But Kirishima bites off his fingers, so he cries about it, and then immediately reveals his face, because, sure, I guess go for it. Show her what you look like, she knows who you are. After this, he heads to Yoshino's room, and then we get also immediately Yoshino's like all over him and is like in love with him, which is really weird because he's like a minor and she's an adult, but there's worse stuff in this book that happens. It then cuts to the dude that's managing Aito, and Aito's like, I've killed my partner. But I mean, of course he hasn't. It's just a fun cliffhanger to end the chapter. He actually only killed Yoshino's partner. They decided to play a little game of chicken, and in doing so, killed Yoshino's boss. So what they do is they hit him to the point where he stops saying, help me, and says, kill me. But then Aiko kills him in one hit, and then they just keep beating his dead body, which is Awesome. Love that. Why did I read this? And then we're told that they kept bashing and mutilating his corpse for the next 45 minutes. I guess they just really wanted to kill a man. After leaving the game place, wherever that is, it's like in the mountains or something, I don't really remember. Aito then gets bullied again by the guys at his school. It's really great. It's great. And then after he gets bullied, he then gets really fun. He cleans up Aya and gives her some food and water, which is the nicest thing he's done since locking her in a prison. However, right as you think he's about to start getting better, he takes a hammer and slams it into Aya's face. And he then just starts hammering the shit out of her. He breaks her arm, and it's just the most fucked. It was here where I actually, realized the point of this story. It's not a story, it's an excuse to show graphic content. Look, a bad story is normal. There's a lot of graphic content, and the women are sexualized to the extreme, and also the art is quite bad. It's fine for the most part, but there are some scenes where you look at some of the characters, you're like, oh wow, yeah, you look fucked up. It's fine for the most part, especially the manager of Aito. For some reason, in most panels, he looks so inconsistent. Sometimes you wouldn't recognize the guy. He just looks not great. I have already put too much time into this, so I'm just gonna rapid fire the most fucked up parts I read to give, a reason for actually doing this, reading this far into it, because I didn't finish it. It was boring. Aito drugs Aya and beats her to the point where she can't even say his name at the naming event, and then just leaves her. Yosho tries to escape because they're gonna trap her because she killed her partner, but they can't let her go because, I don't know, they had it's probably some twist later in the story why they need to keep her, but it's probably dumb and I don't care. Anyway, she almost gets away, but eventually gets cornered, and so she lights herself on fire. But even that doesn't kill her, so she gets locked underground, almost naked and covered in burn scars. Why? Really, this manga is just the most fucked things the author could think of and put it in. The story isn't even interesting to make it worth reading, so 2 out of 10. That's it. I'm rating these now. 2 out of 10. I don't care. It was dog shit. I don't care. It was really bad. Moving on. Next up on the list is Children. Which is also just the worst. It's not revenge torture porn, but instead it's just kind of insane and f***ed up. However, thank God, this manga is only 19 chapters long. No, actually, correction, I think it's only 13? I said 19 because that's what it felt like, but it's only around 13. Or maybe even 9. It's short as fuck. Hold on, maybe I should check that. No, my phone is up there. I'm not going to do that. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. Those, 9 to 13 chapters are actually insane to the point where it's kind of fucked up. So, very simple premise. A guy heads to a school out in the middle of nowhere to help teach, to become a teaching aide. It's really nice and sweet. The kids are chill and there seems to be nothing wrong. They're all orphans and live together at the school. However, yeah, there's a twist. The kids are cannibals. The children eat people. Who comes up with this shit? I'm gonna fucking cry. What an incredible premise. You gotta love some child cannibals. Start them young, I say. Gotta get them hooked on that delicious taste of human flesh. So the main character works at this school, along with the head teacher, who is 14, which is great. I mean, I should have known what to expect from these. I found these in a stack on my anime list that was violence and gore. Why did I read this? So fucked up. Well, after the first day of looking after the kids, he then awakes at night and sees a spooky ass girl outside. So he follows her down and finds a bag full of corpses. This is the big reveal that they eat people. But the kid, so he finds this bag of corpses. He's like, whoa, what the fuck? This is insane. And then the kids come down and they're just chill as fuck and start to unpack the bodies from the bag. Hey, at least they only eat adults. No children get eaten in this, I don't think. Maybe there's a child that gets eaten. I don't really remember. I hope not. That was fucked up. It's kind of fucked up to see these children kill, drain, and skin humans to get them ready to cook. Again, Who wrote this? What problems did they have to want to create this? Igarashi is very scared by what he witnesses. I mean, the kids are terrifying. Oh, that's the main character, by the way. I forgot to tell you his name. I keep doing that. It's not important. It's fine. They just really like human flesh, and they hate adults so much. The most. The girl in charge is Shimizu Sakurako, and she's just the most mentally stable I've ever seen. She's got a little room in the school where she praises her mother, who definitely seems to be dead. Like, she's dead. It's obvious. Everyone has to follow her rules and cut the adults up for food, and if they don't, then they get killed and put in the playground, and it's seen as like a curse, where it's like, if you break the rules or if you try to escape, you will appear in the playground. But the kids are just being killed. They're just being killed. It's not a curse. They kind of set it up so you think there's like magic involved, but no, it's just murder. Dead kids. Also, all the kids have insane trauma, like the worst. It's really hard to read at times, and by that I mean the whole manga is really hard to read. So as it goes on, we're introduced to some other characters that seem to be the people who bring the adults for the kids to feast on, and they seem great, right? Like, we can't go wrong with some adults that bring adults for kids to eat, surely. They also mention a boss of theirs who seems to run some sort of gang. This has to do with the big twist of the manga, which is it's a little bit insane. It's fine. So to start with, Toru, who is really freaked out by how the kids kill and eat people. I mean, why are you so freaked out by that? Kids just being kids, you know? Let kids be kids, I say. We don't let kids be kids these days. Let the kids be kids. And the big twist of this book is that he's actually just insane and loves killing people, and the only reason he was so scared about the kids killing and eating adults was because he had created a personality that was based off his father to act as normal as possible. So yeah, he's actually just like an insane person who has killed many people before and will kill again, and is a sociopath, I think, or like a psychopath. He's got problems. He's got many problems. All the problems is attributed to this guy. So yeah, he's really just a little bit mentally ill, which ain't great. After meeting the villagers, things very quickly start going wrong for this school, because we only have like, what, 12 chapters? We gotta fucking fill this shit now. After a few dead kids, the villagers show back up and then start to kill the kids. So many dead kids. Dead kids go crazy, I guess. Anyway, we then find out the past of Igarashi, the main character. He was almost killed by his own mother and loved killing bugs. You know, normal stuff, I guess. Really, he was just a kid with problems, and his parents, instead of helping him, just abused the shit out of him to the point where he was given to an orphanage, which just so happened to be the exact same school as the one he teaches at today. Coincidence? Fuck no, it's not. Why would that be a coincidence? That's idiot. Use your brain. It's not a coincidence. This was all planned. When he was a kid at the school, he made friends with the daughter of the teacher, who was Shimizu, the teacher now, current teacher. They became fast friends, and then decided that killing insects has gotten boring, and instead they want to kill a human being. So without Shimizu knowing, Toru kills her mother by tying a rope to the top of the stairs, and she plummets to her death, traumatizing all of the children in the orphanage, because as they would be seeing their teacher plummet down the stairs. This especially affects Shimizu, who after being abused by her new family, finds her way back to the school, and in the name of her mother, she then takes kids in and opens up the school again. Which, I mean, we now know, which kind of brings us back up to date. We now know what happened. She opens a school, the gang gets involved and feeds the children human flesh to survive, because they found her eating a raccoon or a rat, I can't really remember, and being like, I'm going to help you, mother. So yeah, we all know how that goes. It goes really well if you're a cannibal, I guess. We then get the final twist, which is that the leader of the gang, who was feeding the kids the adults, was actually one of the guys that would deliver the adults to the kids in the orphanage. So when they were like, who's the leader of the gang? It was the dude that was legit talking to them this whole time. He also was a student in the a kid in the orphanage when Toru and Shimizu were there, and he loved the teacher like so much. And when she was killed by Toru, he swore revenge. So this whole time, his plan was to bring Toru back to the school to get revenge on him. I don't remember how he was going to bring Toru back. I feel like he might have just got lucky that Toru decided on his own accord to come back to the school. His plan seemed a little dumb. Look, I think his plan had holes in it. I'm not gonna tell him how to make a plan. He seems to be pretty good. And I mean, after all these years, he also might as well kill a few cannibal kids while he's at it. His sister was on the inside feeding him information, and she followed Toru and Sakurako as they fled the school. And she lets her brother know when Toru kills Sakurako. Yeah, he straight up murders her because he reverts back to being like how he used to in the past, and decides to then kill her by tossing her off the cliff. So yeah, she's dead now, and she's kind of happy about it. Like, there's not really any more character. She goes, wow, this is what I deserve, and then she fucking dies. She's like 14. Oh my god, there's so many dead kids in this book. I keep, god damn. It's at this point that it switches perspectives from Toru, who really was just a bad guy, to two innocent kids, Rinko and Shiru, as they try to escape from all of the killers, because there are so many killers at this point. Everyone's a killer. Toru saves them by chopping someone's head clean off with an axe, and then trying to go back to acting like the kind guy he was, until he's hit by a fucking truck. One of those little Japanese compact trucks. I mean, they're my favorite. I really want one in the future. That's my dream, is to own a little compact Japanese truck. Love those things. Anyway, back to the child murder and murder in general. He's hit by the truck, driven by the brother who is the leader of the gang. It's getting complicated, I know. Just follow. It's okay. We're almost there. They then start to fight, and after Toru holds him down, Rinko kills him with the same axe, and very quickly after, Toru dies too. I guess because he got hit by a truck, that's probably why. I couldn't work it out when I read it, but I'm now thinking back, I think it's because he got hit by a truck. He probably died to like internal bleeding or something, leaving only Shiru and Rinko as the lone survivors. And this is how the story ends, with only two survivors, so many dead kids. It's really just the best ending you could have asked for. The happiest ending where like no one finds redemption, or a happy ending but two people. Yeah, that was children. And really, it's manga of all time, for real. Yeah, 3 out of 10. What did I rate the last one? Hold on. Yeah, fuck it, 3 out of 10. It's 1 point more than the last one, because at least this one was short and I fucking flew through it. Moving on. Abadana. After all this, let's finish with something that's only kinda bad. Abadana starts really well, with a great mystery that may be a little edgy. Very edgy. It's very edgy at times. But with a pretty good murder mystery. However, this is all ruined not far into the manga, when they ditch the mystery ideas after a few chapters, and then they just explain everything. It really ruins the whole mystery that they seem to be going for, and becomes very predictable after that. Although I do love the super evil villain, and that's what the villain is. He's just like super pure evil, which, you know, gotta love a pure evil villain. He's just evil. He's just a bad guy. He's just a little bit of a fucking stinker, I guess. What are you gonna do about him? So Abadana starts at, of course, the most interesting part, with the murder of Mizuki Aikawa, who is just going about her day until she rocks up to the police station and turns herself in for killing Mako Igarashi, her best friend. The story kind of flicks back and forth from past to present for the most part. until it stops, showing the mistakes that happened in the past and slowly what leads to the present of Aikawa being arrested and put in prison. Aikawa killed a man in self-defense after he forced himself upon her, and then Mako helped her cover up the murder because she's such a great friend. She's a great friend. Get yourself a friend that will help you cover up murder. Back in the present, there's a lawyer trying to get to the bottom of the crime, but he feels as though she's lying to him and intends to get to the bottom of it. So he's got to start looking into what happened. And then finds out that Mako had a boyfriend, and maybe he knows what's going on. He was a partner turned stalker, so seems to be the most likely killer. He then started following Aikawa around because Mako broke up with him. She then decides the only thing to do to protect Mako is to kill him. However, she doesn't end up going through with this, and instead she tells him everything because she thinks she can trust Mako's stalker. Yeah, kinda dumb. The lawyer then thinks that she fell in love with the stalker. So the lawyer heads to Yuki, the stalker's house, and there's a girl there that's doing everything for him in this house. It's so obvious that he just uses girls to get what he wants. He's the best. What he does is he goes out and he dates girls and he brings them back to his apartment, he has sex with them, and then the girls clean his apartment. I don't really understand why, but they do. It happens every time. Like, he brings them back, they clean his apartment. I don't know why they do that, but they do. They clean his apartment. Anyway, they go to Yuki's house. After going to visit Yuki, the lawyers then realize that Mako wasn't killed by Aikawa and interview her again to try and solve the mystery. She mentions how Mako cornered her with a knife, saying how Aikawa was going to turn her in, and then Aikawa blacked out and killed her. So clearly there's some missing pieces in this story here. I mean, you can't remember? Are you sure about that? And so at this point, you're probably assuming that the manga will follow the lawyers going around, going back and forth, finding clues, solving this mystery. Yet, no, this is when the manga kind of loses its steam. It goes back to the start and begins to tell the entire story through Mako's eyes, ruining the mystery completely. Instead of learning this and solving it ourselves, we're just given the answer. So this wasn't a mystery thriller, it was a mystery thriller for a few chapters, and now it's just a story of a girl's really depressing life, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't know what genre this is anymore. I thought I understood, but now I don't. What is going on? I've lost it. I've lost the plot. Nothing matters. We see that Mako had a really rough life. After losing her mother, her father then became a very depressed loser, and he's the sorry, he's really bad. I didn't mean to get so heated over that, but God, where'd that come from? And Mako was forced to pick up shifts and afford rent and food and everything else. Good old character development for kids. Get them started young. The children yearn for the mines. It then gets really nasty because her uncle she works for then convinces her to start taking suggestive photos of her body and selling them online. No matter how much money she makes though, her father keeps spending it. The big twist is that this was all planned by Yuki, who was collecting the photos from the uncle and then selling those photos to her own father, who buys all of them with the money that his daughter was giving him from the work she was doing. It's like a self-sustaining economy in the most up way possible. I mean, you could probably find a manga that's way worse than this, but it's still very nasty. The next big twist is that Mako was actually the one that killed the uncle after he attacked Aikawa, and Aikawa was the one who covered up the murder. Mako, being, kind of fucked up after committing murder, is very clearly struggling and starts to not trust Aikawa, and this is only furthered when she sees Aikawa hanging out with Yuki. She thinks Yuki is going to turn Aikawa against her, so she runs away. Now, this wasn't at all the case. Aikawa's goal was to get Yuki caught in the act because she knew that Yuki had hidden cameras set up in the toilets and everything that was filming Mako. So her goal was to get rid of all this. She just wanted to protect Mako no matter what. However, to do that, she had to get buddy-buddy with Yuki to allow her to get close enough to collect the footage and destroy it so that the footage of Mako would never be released onto the internet. Okay, I think that makes sense. Hope so. I completely missed over that part. So after this, Mako runs away. Mako then decides to meet up with Yuki, and he tells her that the only way she will ever escape him is if she kills herself, which is just... So she does that. yeah, with a knife. You don't see it, but it's not great. Kind of At this point though, Aikawa works out what is going on and rushes to Mako's side, but it's too late. She's killed herself, and Aikawa formulates a plan. Knowing Yuki won't be arrested for this, she buries the knife and cuts Mako's hands off. She then stabs her in the chest with a kitchen knife to prove that she killed her. This plan is a little insane, but hey, she makes it work. In court, she brings in Yuki, who at first everyone loves because he's, so charismatic and hot and sexy, and women love him. He's like Ted Bundy in this fucking courthouse. They love him. This is until he slips up and reveals his true personality, and then people hate him. People just hate him. That's his punishment. I think that's his punishment. I'm gonna have to go back and check that. If I fucking remember, I'm gonna check this in editing. I don't actually really remember what his punishment was, but I mean, Aikawa was happy she beat him. Although she still has to go to prison. After getting out, she moves to Tokyo. And the lawyer takes her to knock off Disneyland because that was always her and Marco's dream. She sees Marco's ghost or something, and then she's like, goodbye, Marco, and then the book ends. I mean, it's probably the best out of the three, but I really hate how they explain the mystery of the murder just outright instead of letting the lawyers work it out for themselves. Also, the ending is fine, I guess. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing to write home about. And on that, frankly, anticlimactic note, ends 3 really great violent mangas I finished recently. They're not super great. They're not anything spectacular. Abadana, I'd give it a 4.5. It's fine. It's almost fine. I mean, it's a little bit less than average. Also, if you have any recommendations for some real violent manga, let me know. Comments. I don't know. I've got other things. Social media. I fucking send it. I'll check it out. Maybe if I have time. Probably. I got fucking time. Tons of time. That's a lie. I'll run out of time. So what am I saying? Okay, that's it really. Thanks for getting this far into the video. I'm gonna do more videos. More videos coming. I say this every time. More videos. Woo! Yeah, more videos coming. Maybe. What if I drop dead? Alright, farewell I guess.